firing away now, so...
Hi, welcome back. Second episode. This is called Freshfields. I was accepted by the top 6 English solicitors firms and chose Freshfields. When I got there after law school in '91, I was already saved, but unknowingly suffering from schizophrenia. I couldn't even work a photocopier without a tax to my head in the form of voices. I managed to do the work though, just, and I think they were pleased. One's law school results come out 6 weeks into our articles contract, and mine was a fail. I was called up to the senior partner's room that morning, and the recruitment partner was there too. They asked me, "Is this job the most important thing in your life?" I said no. They said, "It is for all of us here. Clear your desk by this afternoon." And then as I was leaving they said, "We're Christians too, you know." They also said, "Come back when you've passed law school," something I never did. They gave me £2,000 as I left. I tried to pass law school again. I went to a crammer's, but my mind just wouldn't work. In '94 I resat what was then the legal practice course and narrowly failed, passing 15 out of the 16 exams. It seemed that I was just destined not to be a lawyer. It was 4 years until I was told by Jesus to evangelize full time. After Freshfields though, I started looking for jobs in central London. I found one at Debenhams, which is a shop, and went for the interview. Halfway through the woman asked me if I enjoyed sales assistant work, as I had done it before. I remember thinking, if I say yes, it will be a lie, but if I say no, I won't get the job. I said no, and she offered me the job. I continued to preach the gospel and was fired. I recall I couldn't work the till without interruption from schizophrenic voices. Then followed vain attempts at employment and eventually signing on. I didn't know I was mentally ill. The London Church of Christ then seemed to turn on me. Before I was commended for radically repenting, and suddenly my discipler, one assigned to teach, gave me an Old Testament verse about pleasing my mother. A few days later I was kicked out of my flat and told to go home, even though one of the guys I was showing with was offering to pay my rent. I didn't know it, but my mother had been pressurizing them to release me for months as she thought they were a cult. Thereby hangs the tale, whether they are a cult. I shall go into that later. Suffice it to say that it has been the subject of 20 years' work for me. I came back to Bristol and was put in a mental day hospital. At one of the sessions on feelings, after many had been mentioned, I piped up and said, "This all seems to prove the truth of Jeremiah in the Bible, who said the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can know it?" At that, the boss, a Catholic nun, marched me down to her office and asked me, "How do you feel?" I felt nothing, which I later gathered is a recognized medical symptom. So I rather wittily, I thought, replied, "I feel with my fingertips. How do you feel?" She was not amused and said, "Would you like to go into a mental hospital?" Travels. In my first year at Cambridge I was so disinterested in being a solicitor that I let slip my application for law school. Instead I was out partying and drinking. Consequently I had to wait a year after Cambridge for my law school to commence. I had a spare year. In my year off before Cambridge I'd gone to America as a camp counsellor for kids. This time I decided to go to Australia. I went in November '90, just before the Berlin Wall came down. I missed it all and thought this was God's punishment for me being such a fornicator. When I arrived in Oz I landed plenty of jobs. At one time I held 4 at the same time. They were mainly waitering jobs. I met a girl who invited me to her parents' house. I had a waiting shift then, so I phoned them up to cancel it, lying that I'd hurt my knee. I cycled away from the phone and went over a wooden bridge. My front wheel slipped between 2 planks, and I went over the handlebars and I hurt, guess what? My knee. I sought God involuntarily and found him, way up in the heavens, the first time I ever had. God turned my lie into a truth. The Bible says that if you seek God with all your heart, you will find him. I had lots of spiritual experiences on this trip. It was the start of my spiritual awakening. I went to Hawaii after Australia, stopping off in Samoa for a week. That's a good place. Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor," and this was the first poor place I'd been to. It was great. I went to Hawaii as I had an invitation from a St. John's College friend and her boyfriend. I stayed with them for 6 weeks, working on a building site. That was in Maui. Then I decided to go to Oahu on my own for a while. It was there in Honolulu that the gay molestation took place. I returned to Australia and then went home via Thailand for 2 months. That was great. Trekking in the jungle, staying on the Travellers Khao San Road in Bangkok, and then lying on a beach for a month. The islands are very beautiful, white, soft beaches, crystal clear water and coconut trees all around. I stayed in a beach hut for about £1 a night, and the food was about the same. I think I found, or did I lose, myself there. I started wearing ethnic clothes, grew my hair, which is not biblical by the way, was listening to house music on my headphones, and sorry to say, smoked a lot of cannabis. I enjoyed the excellent food and just relaxed. It was a long way from Guildford Law School. When I got back to London, my friends said I had changed. My mother said I had lost my way. Whichever way, I enjoyed life and wasn't interested in just making money. It was a big shock when I got back to England, a culture shock. Surely the poor, for Thailand was poor too, know how to live better than the rich. Jesus said, "Don't seek material riches, but rather those of heaven." He also said that if you do God's will, he will provide. There's nothing wrong with working, in fact it's a must. It's just a matter of your motivation and priority. When I came back to England, I bought a car for law school and sprayed it blue and green. Law school. I was unhappy there for the first time in my life. I wanted a social life and there was none. I lived on my own in a village. Next, school. I went to 3. Blagdon Primary, the Downs Preparatory and Bristol Grammar. At Blagdon I remember sitting on a rush mat aged 5 saying the Lord's Prayer, although I thought it was "Save us from the eagle one" rather than the evil one. We used to sing hymns like "We plough the fields and scatter" and "Morning has broken," great country hymns. The Downs was renowned nationally for its rugby prowess and was a truly great school. We bellowed out Anglican hymns every morning like "Onward Christian Soldiers" and stand up for Jesus." There is no doubt how great a Christian ethos is for the good of a human being. People were happy, discipline was excellent, and the achievements of the pupils was the very highest. It was a semi-boarding school, and I did so in my last year. I was head boy in my last term. Morale was high, just under half were boarders, and the level I attained in Latin and French aged 13 was not even reached at my O-levels aged 16. It was in the country with about 50 acres of sports field. It's an old country house called Charlton House with outbuildings added on for classrooms. It was a leftover, I suppose, from the British Empire. We still had tiffin, which was tea in India in the days of the Raj, and we used to sing songs about the defeat of Hitler. Bristol Grammar was in some ways the exact opposite. It had no spiritual identity, was in the centre of the city, and behaviour was poor. There was no sense of belonging or morale, it was weak. I was verbally bullied the whole time I was there. The whole class used to chant the word phallus at me. I guess it rhymes with Faris, my surname, whenever I came into the room or spoke. This was begun by the rough kids, some of whom were later expelled. They were punks and wore skin-tight jeans. Then the whole class joined in. The result was to prevent me making any real friends for the whole of my teenage years. This I put down for maybe being a reason why I later took drugs and used to drink a lot, because I did not have close relationships and was looking for something, as the saying goes. Not one of the teachers did anything to stop the abuse. In fact, one even joined in, and he taught RE. An English teacher also hated me. I was told he was jealous of me. After leaving, I wrote to the head asking him to talk about this, but received no reply. Anyway, I got 11 O-levels, 3 A-levels and an S-level. It was a good school academically, it's just that the character of the place was so poor. Nevertheless, at least I'm grateful that I did not go to a comprehensive. They must be terrible, and I really pity those who have to go to them. In a way now, I am almost in favour of homeschooling. When we had sex education classes, they put the idea into our heads to use contraceptives, and this contributed to me later being a fornicator. Indeed, the condom failed. The woman in question got pregnant and had an abortion. The second time, another woman forgot to take the pill for one day, got pregnant and also opted for an abortion. God provided help for me when I was being abused. Richard Jenkins, the captain of the rugby team, befriended me. God arranged this through a miracle. Without Richard's friendship, I don't think I would have been able to bear the humiliation. I was in all the sports teams at both schools and at St John's. At Cambridge I got a blue for boxing and was elected to the Hawks Club, again arranged miraculously. Getting into St John's really was God's doing, for I would in no way have succeeded on the strength of my 7th term exams. However, I got the highest law degree in the college and narrowly missed a first. I really enjoyed law at Cambridge. One studies substantive law, that is, the substance of what the law actually is. At law school, to be a solicitor, one just does procedure, which forms to fill in, etc. And that to me was not interesting. My entrance to Cambridge is worth telling. My friend Simon was also trying to read law at Jesus College. A few weeks before our interviews, he managed to procure a legal aptitude test paper from his college of 5 years ago. To practice, we went through and worked out most of the answers. There were 10 questions. When I went to St John's and we sat before the law tutor, he produced a paper and said, "Here is a law aptitude test. It's very difficult and I don't expect you to get many right, maybe 2 or 3. Lo and behold, it was the same one as we had prepared. I thought, if I tell him I've seen it, I will in no way get into Cambridge, and I'm not telling a lie. Anyway, I polished off about 6 correct answers, and the rest is history. Where I grew up. This is where I grew up from age 3. It is an idyllic place in North Somerset, a farm of 8 acres, although it used to be 26 when we arrived. I'm the eldest of 4 boys, and we used to play on the lawns, in the fields, and in the woods and stream. Mother was a housewife, so everything was very settled as it should be. It's in a small village, and everything is totally quiet there all the time, except for bird song, so it's an excellent place to think and relax. There is now a swimming pool and tennis court. We used to rear geese every year for Christmas, and also had peacocks and guinea fowl. We went to church twice a year." Well, that's the first booklet. I've got another booklet which will probably have episodes 3 and 4 of Law to Grace in. How long have we got left?
9.
Oh, well, I'm pretty much done now. Throat is tired. Leave it at that?
Well, there's plenty more to be said on Doing Jesus Saves.
Do you want to say anything? So I spin it round?
No. Press the button down.